necessarily regret the mistakes that I've made because I've learnt from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's important to reflect on them and
Acknowledge that they weren't the right path.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then your children benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You benefit in your
Hopefully,
life.
yeah.
Your husband benefits. Your children benefit.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the great thing about life, I guess. We've talked about that in the past, JD and I, with the just life being this journey of you're constantly learning, constantly developing.
Yeah.
And wherever you're at, you are pretty much, I mean, obviously you go through your ups and downs, but you're at the moment where ideally, I guess, the most informed we've ever been. You know, we've come to a point where we've assessed, we've made changes. Even if you fail at something and fall on your face, it's very, and I'm definitely like this because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but it's like sometimes there's that temptation of, I don't even want to do that in case I don't do it perfectly. So I'm just not even going to do it. But even falling on your face at the end of that, you're better off than you were before the thing because you've learned.
Totally.
Yeah. And you go, I feel that. Okay, like it's kind of like, it's almost like you break that glass and go, all right, I don't have to do the whole perfection thing. It's like, all right, I've made a mistake, I've learned, let's do something better.
As a parent, you're always like, you know, walking that fine line between, do I let my kids make that mistakes? Those mistakes.
Easy to say, isn't it, when we're reflecting on our own?
Yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to watch someone you love go through that. Yeah. You don't really want them to have to suffer.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about that whole concept of I think two of the like major characteristics of a father or major roles of a father is number one, to encourage, and number two, to discipline. And I think those two are absolutely critical. So for example, if you discipline your child too much, they become not confident. Number one. Yeah. They're not sure how to go about the world. Is somebody going to get angry at me if I do this wrong? Or they go the complete other way and reject authority and have no place for that in their lives and get themselves into a lot of trouble with that. But the other side of it is if you give them too much encouragement without the discipline, then they go off and make mistakes that they didn't have to make. And they get into trouble and, you know, like feel hurt that they didn't have to feel. And so getting that right balance, I think, between disciplining them, so you're providing that boundary, saying that if you go outside of this, there are consequences. And so perhaps they won't. They have a less likelihood of doing that. At the same time, encouraging them, filling them with confidence to go ahead and attack life. A big issue is often we talk about, you know, we were talking about daughters before, but sons, young men. I think there's a bit of a problem in our society at the moment where there's a big lack of sort of meaning amongst these people. They're getting disenfranchised and often like getting radicalized in certain directions, whether that's right or left, because they're looking for and I think a lot of it is because they don't have this balance between discipline and encouragement.
Yeah, definitely. And fatherlessness, you know, that's a big issue, I think, in almost every society in the world, that fathers are either working too hard or they're just not around. And boys aren't getting that that input from a male voice. Yeah.
I mean, I used to really get into watching prison documentaries. I went on a roll for ages where I just consumed prison. I just was fascinated with them. The whole scenario of someone committing a crime and then being locked in this place and getting pretty much like a punishment on this earth. It's almost like a little bit of a foretelling of sort of the thing to come about the ultimate judgment, but it's kind of like it happens here on earth as well, where it's like I'm locked away for something that feels so unnatural, like 30 years in a building. You know, you think, wow. The thing that really blew me away is when they would talk to the prisoners, they would say, well, tell us, like, how did you end up here? Like, what happened? And I'm telling you, there are a number of common aspects of the stories, and one was always, well, my father was never around. Here we go, the same story.
It's the same on my psych rotation, right? Wow. Psychiatry rotation, almost universally. If you see, if you take a history from a lot of these patients, one crucial aspect of the history that every doctor would want you to get, and if you don't get this, it's like you'll get a bad mark, is their developmental history and about their roles of their parents in their lives. And how many, I can't tell you the amount of cases where a parent was absent, there was a breakup in the family.
Yeah. Trauma.
It's just huge.
Trauma.
It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, it just has a profound impact on them. So it always seems to be back. They didn't have that solid. It's very rare that you hear that. My parents they were always around. They were great role models. It's like, nah. It's usually my father was locked away in prison, or mum had a drug problem and wasn't around. You're like, here we go.
Parenting is tough. That's the thing. I mean, I'm talking as someone who's not a parent, but I can just envision how much of a commitment, and it's literally, I was just talking to someone saying that, you go through this progression of life where before you find a spouse, you're kind of building yourself up and you're concentrating on yourself. Mm-hmm. Then you find a spouse, and then you are, concentrating sort of still on yourself, but also another person now, taking them into account. And then finally, the final step of that transition is having kids, and now it's no longer about you.